Rayshawn yanked his STS down 125th and Brackland. He spotted BJ's black Dodge Charger parked in the usual spot, so he whipped in behind it and killed the ignition. As soon as he stepped out of his ride, a small boy named Rico came running up to Rayshawn. "Sup, fool?" The little boy, who looked to be no more than 8 years old, said to Shine in his squeaky little voice with his hand extended, waiting for some dap. "Shit, what's up with your little badass?" Rayshawn replied, as he obliged the little fella's hand with a slap and then quickly scanned up and down the street. "Nothing. I'm about to go to the store and get some candy. You want some?" Rico offered. "No, I'm good, little homie," Rayshawn said as he dug in his pocket and came out with a $10 bill and handed it to Rico, telling him to put it in his piggy bank. "Hey, BJ bought me a new football game for my PlayStation. You want to come over and play later?" Rico asked, hoping Rayshawn would say yes. "No, little nigga. I gotta go bust a move. Later in the week though, alright?" Rayshawn said as he began walking towards the building across the street. "Be careful up at that store too, boy," Rayshawn said over his shoulder as he walked into the building's hallway. The aroma of good weed and BG's Life After Cash Money CD flooded the hallway. Rayshawn made his way to apartment number 2. He pulled out his cell phone and hit the speed dial on his Fave 5. 3 rings later, BJ was shouting on the other end. "What's up, nigga? Where the fuck you at?" "Man, I'm at the front door," Rayshawn retorted and hung his phone up. Seconds later, the door was heard being unlocked and yanked open. BJ stood there with a burning Swisher Sweet hanging from his mouth. He took a hard drag of the purple, then passed it to Rayshawn with his left hand, then gave him some dap with his right hand. "About time your dog ass showed up," BJ spoke as he turned and walked back into the apartment. On the outside, the building looked raggedy and run down, but in apartment number 2, it was plush. White leather couches and love seats, glass tables, 61-inch smart TV playing PlayStation, Xbox, gigantic JVC speakers, wall-to-wall money green carpet. Rayshawn walked over and gave Pook and Dre some love as they sat playing each other in Madden. He then dropped the Swisher in the ashtray and headed for the kitchen. He raided the fridge and came out with a bottle of cold Bud Ice. He wasted no time cracking it open and taking a nice gulp. Rayshawn stood 6'1", 180 pounds, nice dark brown complexion, and low brush wave haircut with a small goatee to go with his medium build. "Hey, bruh, let me holler at you back here," BJ said, getting Rayshawn's attention, then headed for the back room. BJ stood 6 feet even. He also wore a low brush wave haircut, but he was light-skinned and rocked a 5 o'clock shadow, which he kept crispy as a Steve Harvey's lineup. The big black tee that he sported hid his medium linebacker-like build. Once they were in the back room, Rayshawn closed the door and watched as BJ pulled a fatigued duffel bag out of the closet. He picked the bag up, put it on the bed, then unzipped it. The bag contained 4 kilos of raw cocaine and about $60,000 in cash. "Damn, nigga, you went and did the shit without me?" Rayshawn said as he picked up one of the keys. "Bruh, the shit was so sweet, I couldn't wait on you. Plus, you was all drunk and shit, but it ain't nothing. I got in and out. You already know we down the middle," BJ said as he emptied the bag onto the bed. Rayshawn grabbed 3 of the 10,000 stacks and lined them in the front of his waistline. He then tightened his belt and let his shirt fall over them. Rayshawn then went into the closet and grabbed a red, white, and blue polo book bag. He put 2 of the kilos inside and pulled the drawstring. "Dog, this good looking," Rayshawn said as he slung the book bag over his shoulder. "Shit, nigga, it ain't nothing. Your motherfucking ass would have did the same for me." Besides, all I had to do was a pull-up, you feel me? BJ said with a huge smile on his face as he put both hands in the air and reenacted how he pulled himself up to hit the lick. Oh yeah? What's up with that dream your crazy ass was talking about? BJ jumped to a new subject. Man, it's the same one. This time I was on trial for murder and got found guilty. Rayshawn gave BJ a quick rundown of the dream he had earlier. Bruh, you need to lay off the Grey Goose, BJ replied, tried to keep a straight face, but the two bust out laughing together. Man, you think everything a motherfucking game, huh? Rayshawn said in between laughs. BJ opened the bedroom door and they both headed for the living room. Well, if it ain't freaking frack, a short, pudgy, brown-skinned dude said as BJ and Rayshawn entered the room. Tay, what's up with your fat ass? BJ said as he walked over and grabbed the already burning sweet from Dre. Rayshawn just looked at Tay, sucked his teeth, then gave him a nod as he sat on the leather love seat. Although Tay had never done nothing to him, Rayshawn didn't like him. He told BJ this several times, but BJ just laughed and said, man, Tay cool, bruh. Rayshawn flipped open his phone and began to dial. Hello? A very soft voice said into the receiver after 2 rings. Toya, what's up? Rayshawn chimed into his phone after hearing her voice. Oh, hey, boo, she said, sounding happy to hear his voice. Tanya was another one of Rayshawn's girls. She was 6 years older than he was, but she worshipped the ground he walked on. She was the only one out of all of his girlfriends that he told about the others. They communicated and got along extremely well. Tanya was very pretty with a body like Jessica Rabbit and silky soft light brown skin. She stood at 5'3" and knew just how to treat a man. Any man would fall in love with Tanya easy. But what kept Rayshawn from falling in love with her was the simple fact of how they met. On Rayshawn's 17th birthday, BJ threw him a nice party at one of the neighborhood bars. Once the party was over, they relocated to an apartment on Brackland. About 45 minutes later in the apartment, full of weed, smoke, music, and liquor, a knock was heard at the door. Rayshawn opened it to see Toya and 2 other females all carrying bags, and all of them wearing trench coats. Oh shit, the stripper's here now, nigga, Pook said as he put his arm around Rayshawn's shoulder, moving him to the side so they could enter. Rayshawn ended up busting 3 nuts with Toya that night, and the next morning he gave her a ride home. From then on, they stayed in contact, and she fell in love with his swag. What you want to eat tonight? I'm about to cook, Tanya asked lovingly. Shit, make some steak, mac and cheese, and some green beans, he responded, thinking about how good her cooking is. You want some dinner rolls too, she questioned. Hell yeah, put that shit together, baby, he replied. Okay, what time you gonna be here? Toya asked as she began washing her hands and preparing to cook Rayshawn's meal. I'll be over there in about 45 minutes, he said, and continued. Do you have to work tonight? Yeah, but I'm not going in until around 9:30, she replied. Okay, bet. I got something I need for you to do for me, okay? He said to her, and she already knew that he wanted her to take a couple bags of cocaine to work with her and sell them to the other strippers. She had no problem with doing this. In fact, she loved bringing Rayshawn all of her nightly earnings. All she wanted him to do was keep the fridge full and keep all the bills paid, which he did. All right, boo, I'll be waiting on you, Toya said lovingly. I'm going to see you in a minute, Rayshawn said and hung his phone up. He stood up with the polo bag in hand and headed for the front door. Hey, B, walk with me right quick. he said with a nod of his head to BJ. BJ reluctantly got up to his feet and followed Rayshawn into the hallway. Bruh, I almost forgot to tell you about how the bitch ass nigga little man called my phone earlier, talking reckless as fuck. BJ didn't say a word. He just balled his face up. Right. Either the bitch trying to jack or he working with them folks, dog. Rayshawn continued. How the fuck that clown get your phone number? BJ questioned. Dog, your guess is as good as mine, Rayshawn answered. Don't worry about him. If I see him before you, I'ma handle it. BJ spoke as he placed his hand on his chrome Desert Eagle that rested under his black tee. And vice versa, Rayshawn retorted. The two exchanged handshakes and hugs, and BJ walked as Rayshawn made his way to his STS. Be careful, bruh, BJ shouted. You too, Rayshawn shouted back as he hopped in, cranked up the lack, and smashed off. Rayshawn took the back streets all the way from Bracklin to Euclid Avenue. He also wore his seatbelt and had his system turned down very low. His eyes went from mirror to mirror as he steered to his destination. As he rolled past Alcoy, a few of the young hustlers tried flagging him down, but Rayshawn just honked his horn and kept on pushing. He made a hard right on Lamson and kept cruising until he reached Mannering. Once he got to the dead end side of the street, he made a right into the narrow driveway that led into the Mannering apartments. He put the lack in park, shut off the engine, and grabbed for the polo bag from the passenger seat. Next, he reached in his pocket and pulled out his .38 automatic, flipped off the safety, exited his vehicle. Rayshawn quickly looked up and down the tight apartment driveway. Once he was sure that no one had followed him, he pulled out his phone and began to dial. After 3 rings, Tanya's voice could be heard on the other end. Hello? She chimed into the phone. Open the door, baby, he replied and hung up his phone, then made his way to the metal steps and began going down them 3 at a time. Once he reached the bottom, Tanya was standing there with the door open and a big smile on her face. Ray gave her a quick peck on the lips and continued past her into the apartment as she closed and locked the door behind him. The wonderful aroma of home-cooked meal filled the small apartment. Your dinner will be ready in 10 minutes, Tanya said in a loving tone as she stirred the mac and cheese. All right, baby, Rayshawn said as he headed for the bedroom. He took the polo bag and placed it on top of the shelf in the closet, then headed for the living room where he flopped onto the couch and began flicking the channels on the television until he reached what he wanted to watch. He looked over to the ashtray and saw a half-smoked Swisher. Quickly, he leaned over, grabbed it, and put fire to it. As he blew a big smoke cloud into the air, his phone began to vibrate. Without looking at the number on the caller ID, he just answered. Yeah, what's up? He said as he took another drag of the fruity weed. Hey, baby, the voice on the other end said. A huge smile spread across Rayshawn's face as he recognized his mother's voice. Hey, Mom, what's up with you? Oh, nothing. Where are you? She asked. Not far. Why, what's up? Why does something have to be up for me to call my son? I just wanted to hear your voice and make sure you're okay. Is that all right with you? Yeah, that's all right, Ma, he replied as he took another pull of the reefer. He blew out the smoke and continued. I'm coming to get you tomorrow so we can go shopping. Shopping? Shopping for what? She asked. Clothes and stuff, he answered. Boy, I don't need no more clothes and stuff. I still got all kind of brand new clothes and stuff in my closet right now. Shit, if you keep me shopping, I'm going to have to knock down one of these walls and make room. Her words caused Rayshawn to chuckle. And stop putting money in my mailbox. Huh? Rayshawn asked with a chest full of smoke. Huh, my ass, Negro. You know what I'm talking about. No, I don't, Ma. That might be one of your secret crushes, he stated. Yeah, whatever, Rayshawn, she said and smiled, knowing that he was the one who put the 10 $100 bills in the envelope she found in her mailbox. Baby, let me call you back. This your auntie on the other end. She running her mouth about something her man done did. All right, Ma, I love you, he said. I love you more, she replied. Thanks for the money, boo. She managed to slip in before he disconnected. Just as he put his phone back in his pocket, Toya walked in with a plate of food. She handed it to him and he quickly began devouring it. Toya smiled as she watched him feed his face. She then went back to the kitchen and returned with a big cup of Kool-Aid. Soon as she set the cup on the table, Rayshawn grabbed it and took a big gulp. Damn, this shit is slamming, baby, he said as he continued to chow down. Thanks, darling, she replied with a smile as she went in her personal stash and began to roll up some weed. By the time she finished with the second one, he had finished the plate and let out a loud burp. Excuse me, he said as Tanya wiped his mouth with a napkin and then placed a soft kiss on his mouth. She then lit one of the swishers and took a couple puffs, then handed it to Rayshawn. Are you coming to watch me dance tonight? She asked. Now you already know I'm not coming up in there, he said and took a big pull of the weed. Why not? She said and powdered her face. Why come see you there when I can see you here? He said as he blew her a shotgun and grabbed her butt with both of his hands. She then stood up and began to dance very seductively in front of Rayshawn. His eyes followed her as she worked her way in between his legs and down to her knees. She moved her body like a snake as she undid his belt, unfastened his pants, and unzipped his zipper. She then put her face up to Rayshawn's and let him blow another shotgun as her hand found its way into his pants and around his manhood. Once she inhaled all of the smoke, she seductively made her way back down to his lap and slid all of him into her wet, hot mouth.